Alright, here we go. We're going to have ourselves a puppet animation tutorial. For those of you that are following along in the live stream, we're not going to be chatting through Skype like we normally do. You're going to use the live stream chat if you want to chat with me. There we go. My nickname is Flamingo1986. There you go. So that's how you'd chat with me. Plop that over there. So we are here to learn about animating in Flash. So one thing that I'm going to do for you guys is, who here has animated the Smiley Demo so far? Okay, I so don't have to do that then. Excellent! I don't have to worry about the stupid Smiley Demo. But just to give you guys kind of an idea of the level of skill you should have before you animate puppets, because this is for the live stream crew as well, the online crew. I'll animate the Smiley Demo really fast, ridiculously fast. It'll take me like 5 minutes, but that way at least I can show you it for those of you who haven't done it before. Most of the local crew here have, so. Alright. And you guys can read that up there, right? So you can see them all responding to you. Yeah, they can read what you're saying. We've got this projected on a huge projector. They all say hi. Alrighty, so I need to go to crew animation tests and then assets. And here we go. We're going to do a John Doe Smiley Demo. So the way the Smiley Demo works is you get 3 files. You get John Doe Anim Test 01, John Doe Smiley 01, and you get Smiley Demo Complete. The Smiley Demo Complete is the completed version of the Smiley Demo for you to reference off of. And then the John Doe Smiley is meant to be the blank version that you animate the Smiley off of. Right off the bat, what we're going to do once this opens is we're going to rename the file. John Doe is just a placeholder. You're supposed to put your actual name there. So here's the Smiley Demo. It's called John Doe Smiley. Right off the bat, I'm going to hit Control-Shift-S to save as. And then wherever on my computer I'm animating this, I would just go ahead and rename John Doe with my name. So this would be Zachary Rich Smiley 01 CS6 save. It'll be converted. That's fine. Alright. So now we've got Zachary Rich Smiley 01, and that's what we're going to do. I'm going to animate this really fast. So right off the bat, we need to do a move and rotate on a keyframe. So here's a really easy way to do that. I'm just going to go F6 to create a keyframe. I'm going to move this up. I'm going to rotate it around by holding down Shift. Then I'm going to go right click. I'm going to go create classic tween so that it does it for me. Then what I'll do is I'll come over here to properties, edit easing, and give it an ease in and an ease out. I apologize if I'm going fast, but this is the Smiley Demo. This is the part where I just don't really want to go slow and show you guys how to do it, because most of you guys have already animated this. Alright, now that we got an ease in, ease out, I'm going to highlight it, hit F6, right click, remove tween, and then I'll control click and select every other keyframe. And then I'll hit Shift F6 and remove them. That way you have keyframe along a move and rotate on 2s. Significantly faster than I bet some of you guys did. That's the easy way of doing it. In fact, that's the reason why my completed version looks so good, because I didn't actually keyframe it through moving and rotating. I cheated. So blah haha, fools. And let me just make sure that I can see what you guys are saying there. Oh, you never did one? Okay, well you'll like this then. Okay, so there's that. Let's do the squash and stretch. So we need to have a starting point, which is this. We need to have an ending point, which is back to where it was. So right off the bat, the Smiley needs to squash down. I'm squashing this down by holding down Alt while I squash it, because that locks the symbol by the opposite corner. So if I want to rotate it, see how it's rotating it along the anchor point in the middle? If I hold down Alt, though, it rotates by the opposite corner of wherever I grab it. So it's a really handy thing to do. So I want to squash it down, holding down Alt. I won't hold down Alt here because I want to stretch it out uniformly. So bam, 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 bam. I'm moving through keyframes by hitting the comma key and the period key on the keyboard. You'll see 2 little arrows there. That's how I'm going backwards and forwards. with my keyboard. So bam, squash down, squash down. He's going to squash down again. I hit F6 to create a keyframe. Squashes down even further. Bam, bam. All right, now what's going to happen is he's going to be like, and he's going to squash all the way up like that. Notice how when I squash and stretch him, I'm worrying about the Y and the X axis. I'm trying to maintain mass. If you squash down, you're gonna bulge out. If you're gonna stretch up, you're gonna squeeze in because your mass remains the same no matter what you're doing. So stretch up and he squeezes. He's gonna stretch up even more and he'll squeeze in even more because I need to maintain that mass. F6, I want him to ease in, and F6 I'll start to come back down. So from this point on I'm going to settle. Let's go back to this frame here. I'm just going to copy this frame over by holding down Alt and then dragging it over, and it copies the keyframe. See that? Bam, bam, bam. He goes back down. Now I want him to settle, which means he's going to go past his original point. So I'm going to copy this, drag it over, and then I'll go past. And then I need him to go back up above his ending point. So I'm going to copy this over, and I'll go above. And then I need him to go back past it. So I'm going to copy this over, and he'll go ever so slightly past it. And that way, if we hit the play button, he squashes up and he settles. See if you guys have any questions over there. Zach, I'm actually going to get back on my page. Okay. Alright, I don't know what that means, but whatever. Alrighty, then we're going to do the classic tween straight, which is going to be ridiculously easy since I already kind of did that for the move and rotate. F6, F6, stretch up, around, right click, create classic tween, click, edit easing, give it an ease in and an ease out. And I do apologize if I'm going too fast for you to follow, but the nice thing is that this entire thing is getting recorded, so you can always go back and re-watch what I'm doing. So there we go. Classic tween with an ease out along a straight axis. Alright, now we're going to get to the more complicated things. We've got classic tweening along an arc, and we've already got a line set in place, luckily. So we want the Smiley to tween along this arc that has already been built for him. F6, making sure that the arc starts right at his center of his true point, which it does. And then we're going to go F6, and we're going to move him over until there. Bam. That way he begins, ends, begins, ends, begins, ends. Alright, I'm going to right click, hit create classic tween, and that way he'll tween along the arc, which is what we want. And then right in the center, I'm going to go F6, F6, two keyframes right next to each other. And then I'm going to go modify, transform, flip horizontal on this keyframe. And then on this one, go modify, transform, flip horizontal. That way he flips halfway through. See that? And then on this tween, I'll give it a negative 100 ease. And on this part of the tween, I'll give it a positive 100 ease. That way, we have a nice travel along an arc where he flips his head halfway through and he eases in and eases out. So that's it for classic tweening along an arc. Now we're going to come down here to single frame real fast. Single frame. So single framing works where you create a keyframe, F6, you select the symbol, and then over here in properties, under looping, there's an option called single frame. I'm going to change that so that it is no longer the number one. Actually, I'll keep it on the number one for the first one. And let's go to here, and I'll go F6, and I'll select it, and I'll change it over to number 2. And see how it changes? I'm going to come over to here, hit F6, change it to number 3, and it changes again. And then I hit F6 over here, and I change it to number 4. Now, why is that working? Why does this work? Well, it's because when we double-click to go inside of the symbol, see how there's 4 frames here? Where every single frame is a different drawing of a smiley as he slowly has an orgasm or something, whatever he's doing. Who knows? He's just really happy. But this is the way that single framing works. Single framing works where you create a whole bunch of different assets inside of a symbol. For example, all of the different mouth shapes for the ponies, or all of the different eyelids for the ponies, or all of the different hair pieces for the ponies. And how you animate them is you don't animate them inside of the symbol, you leave that alone, you never touch it. Outside of the symbol, on the timeline, you put down a keyframe, you select the symbol, and then you change the number to whatever number you want to show. If inside of this symbol, I want the 4th frame to appear outside, then outside I will change the number to the 4th frame. Bam, and it changes it. That's how single framing works, and all of the ponies' facial animations, all of their facial reactions, all of their emotions, it's all animated with that technique. So learning how to animate with that is very crucial to knowing how to animate puppets. It doesn't exist. I was about to say that it's very rare that you'll find a puppet without some kind of single framing in it. It's not just rare, it's impossible. There is no such thing as a puppet that does not use single framing. It's as simple as that. Okay, well that's single framing. Now what we're going to do is we're going to combine the single framing technique with the classic tween along an arc into one thing. Classic tween arc with single frame. Because we can do that. We can totally animate both of them at the same time. And let's do that. So I've got a classic tween along an arc. Well, I need to put him on an arc. So let me go ahead and go right click, add classic motion guide. Ba-bam. And on this new layer, I'm going to get my line tool, which is N on the keyboard. I'm going to set it to a hairline just because I like that. And I'll set the color of the line to red just because I like that too. And now I'm just going to put the line randomly somewhere. Blah, blah, blah. I don't really care where I put it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my smiley so it shows the true point. And then I'll grab the end of the line and I'll drag it until it snaps into place. Bam! See how it snapped? Ha-ha! There's that. Alright, now I'm going to come over to my smiley layer. I'll hit F6. I'll come over here to the end. And I'll hit F6 and get his ending point. And then I'll grab this part of the line and snap it into his ending point. There, that way he ends and begins at the beginning and ending of that line. And now what I can do is I can curve the line. I can right click on the smiley and hit classic tween and he'll tween along the line, which is exactly what I want. And I'm just going to do this basically the same way I did the other smiley. So I'm going to go F6, F6, 2 keyframes in the middle. This one here I'll go modify, transform, flip horizontal. This one over here I'll go modify, transform, flip horizontal. So that way he flips his head halfway through. And I want to put an ease on there, so I'll go a negative 100 on this side of the tween. I'll go with a positive 100 on that side of the tween. That way if I hit the play button, he eases in, eases out. And that takes care of the classic tweening part. Now we're going to do the single framing part. But single framing doesn't work unless you have a keyframe. If you do not have a keyframing, single framing will not work because you're not changing anything. So I need to turn this entire thing into keyframes. But I'm going to make pretty damn certain that this smiley is animated to perfection. There's nothing else that I need to change about this smiley. Because once I turn this entire tween into keyframes, that's it. I can't alter it anymore. Everything's a keyframe. I'd have to reanimate the whole thing to get it back to where it originally was. And I'm watching it right now. It looks like it eases in and it eases out very well. He flips his head halfway through. Everything looks good to me. I'm going to select this entire tween and hit F6. And it turns the entire thing into keyframes. And then while I've got it selected, I'm going to right click and remove the tween. So that way I took that animation and I turned it into just a whole bunch of keyframes. It's the same animation. It's just no longer relying on a tween. It's just relying on keyframes. And since it's no longer relying on a tween, I can take that classic tween arc guide and I can just delete it. I don't need that anymore because I've got keyframes now. Alright, now this is where single framing comes into play. I already know that inside of this smiley there are 4 frames. And it looks like that the higher in number we go, 1, 2, 3, 4, the more it looks like he's actually turning his head to the center. So that means that at the center of this movement is where he should be at the center of turning his head. So this one should be the number 4. I'm going to go over one more. This should probably also be the number 4. I'm going to go over again. This one I'll make number 3. Go over again. This one I'll make number 3. Go over again. This one I'll make number 2. Go over again. This one I'll make number 2. And I'll make a third one of a number 2, and then the rest will be 1s. That way, he turns his head as he gets to the center, and now we have to do it over here too. So This is also number 4. This is also number 4. This is number 3. This is number 3. This is number 2. This is number 2. And this is number 2. And that way, we animate him doing a head turn with an ease in, ease out, and we use the single framing to make it seem like he's actually turning his head in space, which is called 2.5D. And it's one of the reasons why puppet animation works so great. And we did that through combining classic tweening along arcs with single framing. There's one more way to animate in Flash, and that's through nested symbols. Now usually in Flash you'll get two types of symbols. You'll get one symbol that has a whole bunch of different things nested inside of it for single frame animation. For example, like the single frame symbol we used over here, where inside you just have a whole bunch of different things that are meant to be used for single frame animation. Then you'll have another type of symbol, which when you double click inside, it actually has just a blank timeline. And the timeline matches the number of frames that are outside. So outside we're animating at 44 frames. Inside the nested, it's also at 44 frames. And the key to this working is I can change stuff inside of here, and then when I double click back out and I hit the play button, it'll play all of the stuff that's inside of there. And the reason why it does is because remember how when we select the single frame smiley and then over here the option is set to single frame? When we click on the nested smiley, see how the option has changed to play once? What you're telling Flash when you change the option to this is, hey Flash, I want you to animate everything that's inside of here by playing everything inside of it once. Whereas with single frame, we're telling them, hey Flash, I want you to not animate everything inside. I just want you to show one single frame. And that's the way single framing works. If I changed single frame to play once, it'll play all those frames in a row. See that? It just automatically plays them. Whereas if I change it from play once to loop, it'll loop that over and over again. See that? Which is why we want to keep him on single frame, because that's the way that symbol was designed to be used, with single frame. Nested, however, is designed to be played with loop or play once. It doesn't matter which one it is. They both, I mean, it's set to the same number of frames that the outside one is, but I'll just keep it on play once. So what I want to do inside of this nested symbol is I want to animate a tumor growing out of the smiley's head. And I can do that because now that we're inside of the symbol, I can actually grab shapes and I can change it. You can't do that outside of the symbol because, well, it's a symbol. So inside of the symbol, I'm going to animate a tumor growing out of his head. And here we go. I'm going to go F6. I'm going to use that F6 for nothing at first, then F6 again. And he has to have anticipation, so the tumor is going to grow in real fast. And then F6, it's going to bulge out. F6, it's going to bulge out even more. F6, bulging out. F6, it's going to start slowing down. F6, ever so slightly bulges. And now I have to settle. So F6, it's going to come back in. F6, maybe back in a little more. Alright, F6, I want it to go back out. And then F6, it comes back in ever so slightly. That way, if I hit the play button, a tumor grows out of his head. And if I double click back out, see how there's nothing on this timeline? This timeline is perfectly clear. However, everything that's happening inside of that symbol is still playing because we've set the symbol to play once starting from frame 1. And it all plays. And that's how we work with nested symbols. So that didn't take me that long. It only took me 20 minutes. Any questions about how I animated all of that stuff before we move into the more complicated puppet demo stuff? That goes to you online crew as well. How do you use the single frame looping? Is that your question? Because I just went over that. I just went over it. How did I curve the line? Curving the line is pretty easy. All you do is you just create a line with the line tool, and then get your selection tool, which is V on the keyboard, And then notice how the selection tool has a little box in the bottom right hand corner. Look at that box as I get closer to the line. See that? It changed into a little curved line. Once it's changed to a curved line, all you have to do is just click and drag and it'll curve the line. When it's a box, it's a box. When it's a curved line, you can curve the line. And that's how you do that. And as far as using single framing for the pony parts, well, I'm going to get into that when I actually get to the ponies. My questions for you guys right now is more about just what I did with just these basic concepts. Keyframing, classic tweening, single framing, and nesting. I'll go more into pony parts actually immediately after this.